Well, first of all, thank you all for joining. This has obviously been a rather popular webinar topic. A little bit about ProFundCom. We are a digital marketing platform, and we specialize in helping digital marketers identify new investment through their digital marketing. And we do that by tracking, website engagement, social media engagement, email engagement, investor portal engagement, and the like. And we've been going for about 17 years, well, more than that now. And we've got a whole bunch of fund managers to wealth managers to private banks, all clients of ours. So why are we talking about finding investors with digital marketing? And fundamentally, it's because whether we like it or not, investors, the whole world is effectively gone digital in some way of their engagement with funds. And the awareness of a fund is not just down to, well, I'm on a platform somewhere. It's not about, oh, well, I went to Game, I went to Fund Forum, I've been to all these events, I've been to polo, I've been to tennis. That world changed pre-COVID, and it's definitely changing now. And now the investor journey, when they come to kind of look at, even get to the consideration phase and decision phase of your fund, is in the awareness stage. And that now is more about thought leadership. It's about website content. It's about running events, online, offline, social media, press releases, the concept of inbound and outbound marketing, before you even kind of get to you're in the mix. And the reason I suppose this has become more and more of a challenge is because most marketers are not equipped with these skills. So that skill is bought in. But the big challenge becomes, well, you've got all these various channels that you've got to manage. And that is just setting out press releases, timing thought leadership pieces, putting updates to the website. The marketing role has not become one of pure marketing, where you're busy creating subjective value in your brand. You're getting inspiration from Steve Jobs and Elon Musk and the like. You've actually become what's kind of becoming marketing operations. And the challenge with marketing operations is that you're busy just doing stuff. And it's actually very, very hard to actually see where new investors are coming in from, because there's now a mountain of data you've got to negotiate. You've got to negotiate your website traffic. If you've got an events platform, the events platform. You've got to manage your social media. You've got to manage the press releases that are going out. You've got to manage your email platform. There's so many things to manage. So ultimately, there is no ROI in anything that's being done. And at the same time, you have literally no idea who are the people that are engaging with you. So whilst I've kind of given you the problem, ultimately, the solution that we're trying to look for is the ability to say, okay, the end game is from a marketer's point of view, is to kind of look at it from two perspectives. One is the overall brand awareness part, and that are the numbers. Are we sending more emails? Are more people reading our social media? Are our white papers getting downloaded more? Which is kind of the brand awareness part of your fund. The next part is the demand generation, and that's two very, very different topics. So brand generation is what you're doing outbound, brand advertising, websites, PR pieces on news wires, and that's demand generation. Sorry, that's brand for the brand. Demand generation is where people actually come back to you and actually leave information for you. So they actually give you their email address, give you their contact details, saying, yes, we are interested in what you're sending us. So that is the ultimate end game. And what the ultimate end game, now what should happen here is it should be a real-time slide, but we'll leave that out for now. So how do we get to that point? And there are 5 ways that I've really kind of thought about how can, if you're big early in your journey of looking to find new investors, or you're kind of maturing your journey, what are the kind of 5 things you need to kind of look at? Or and you know, if you're not doing it, do it. If you are doing it, maybe there's some pointers here to assist you. So the first part, and probably the easiest but the hardest part, is around your fund brand narrative. So it's almost like how, and this is the go-to-market strategy. So the go-to-market strategy for a fund using digital marketing is the most important, because it's not even to do with digital marketing. It's really to do about your fund. So the 3 points here are: what is your fund narrative? Are you long, short, equity driven, distressed debt? What are you? And the second thing is, have you actually worked out who your ideal investor is? And once you've kind of worked those 2 out, it's kind of then working, where are your top 10, 100 investors? Where are your top 1,000 investors? And this is, I know it's probably the simplest thing in the world. If you do one thing, and it doesn't matter whether you're selling funds, whether you're selling software, whether you're selling cars, whether you're selling luxury goods, these are kind of the 3 things you need to do before you do any marketing, whether that's, you know, on a pop-up stand at a village fair, or you're actually selling a fund. And actually having these 3 items just written down. And, you know, I could ask, you know, the 300 people who've signed up to this webinar to say, right, what is your fund narrative? And ask them to write it. And in a language that an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old could understand. So let's say you do that exercise. So, you know, hand on heart, guys, assuming you can do this. The next thing is to ask, okay, who is our ideal investor? And that is really important. So when you look at, you know, I mean, you know, I use an example of Tesla. Tesla know the people they are selling their cars to. And I had this discussion, I think this week, is, you know, Tesla know the people who are buying a Tesla, they are buying it not for the looks, they're not buying it for anything that most people would go to a traditional dealership with. And when you buy a Tesla, there are no options. The only options are color, performance or long range, wheel trim, and internal trim. That's it. And they've kind of worked out the kind of thing, the narrative of the illusion of choice. It's like there is no choice. And so they've worked out who their ideal investor is. You know, whether you're an iPhone user or an Android user, these people know, Apple know who they're targeting. So they don't really waste time and energy on people they don't want to target. And that's kind of the time and energy part is really critical. So once you kind of know your fund narrative, once you kind of got to the point, you know who your ideal investor is, you then got to go, you know, do a Broadway show, which is basically take your proposition to who you consider your top 100 investors are going to be. And then you're going to have some data. And that is the critical point. Now you have some data. Now, the good news is with digital marketing, you've got access to that data. And you'll be able to see whether it's a download for a white paper, whether there's people, you know, signing up to events online, offline, whether there's people on the investor portal, people reading fact sheets, you've suddenly got some information. And whatever that information tells you, you can kind of go back to step 1 and keep refining the marketing message. Because you get to a point, and I've seen this, where this doesn't work first time, second time, third time, but probably at the 7th to 11th iteration, people actually start to get this right. And it's really interesting that number 7 or 11, because if you kind of look at, you know, the cycle of life, the biorhythms and the behaviors of life, you know, most relationships last 7 years. When you kind of look at product cycles, it's 7 years. The interesting story of 7-Up, I don't know if anybody knows the story of 7-Up. 7-Up, the formula was originally called 1-Up. And it took the guy 7 times to go to Coca-Cola before they said, okay, we now like this formula because 7-Up's just lemonade. It took him seven goes. And I don't know if anybody's into history, but Robert the Bruce, before the Battle of Bannockburn, he saw a spider trying to weave a web and had to go over like a corner of the room he was in, and actually saw it took 7 times before it actually became the spider could actually make that part of the web. 7 is an incredibly interesting number, but it does take that long to actually in an iterative cycle to get somewhere. And that's that's the same with Mandelbrot curves. If anyone's into chaos theory and the like, 7 and 11 is an incredibly it's a very odd. These two numbers are very odd numbers, but they somehow fit the cycles of what people are doing. And what reason I'm saying that is, if it doesn't work after one go, please don't ring me and say, "Oh, Paul, you're talking rubbish." Again, no, it takes time. So that is really, if you're going to take one thing away from that, just build out your go-to-market strategy, because that is just so important. And the way that kind of feeds in to the whole process is, once you've built your narrative, that then fits into your brand, which is, how you create content for your ideal investor. And once you've nailed the brand, is demand generation, is that people are actually kind of leaving information for you, which then feeds into the engagement and ultimately feeds into your analytics. And if you keep repeating this cycle, at some point out of the analytics pops out the investment. And that's kind of where our product sits, where we can do that analysis for you. But our product is absolutely no good without these steps in place. So with that in mind, the next point is, right, okay, Paul, we kind of get the company narrative, we get the brand strategy. We haven't actually spent any money yet, because there's no money to be spent. If you're going to try to get people, I suppose there's time, but it's to just sit down and workshop the brand narrative, work out your ideal investor profile and where they live and how you go to market. That is kind of the start of the journey. So once you've done that, and assuming there's a big tick, you've done that, the website. Now, the thing with a website is, building a website in the kind of the fund world is really understanding at what point of the journey, of the investor journey, are people visiting your website. That is something that is really, really missed, because obviously, and I know I can see people on this call who have invested huge amounts on the website and kind of wonder, well, we've done all that, now what? Well, there are kind of two parts, and we're doing SEO as well. We're doing all that. How come our website's not working? And it's really because most times a website is built, it's built from a designer's point of view to appease somebody who wants something that looks good. And look, there's nothing wrong with that. But there is another element to this. And I'm going to show you some really, really quick wins to actually do some analytics on your website today to actually work out how can you move closer to your ideal investor. And the way you do that is actually pretty simple. All you need is a bit of Google Analytics and Google Studio, and basically download the top 100 pages on your website that have been engaged with. Okay, it's a very simple process. Should not take anybody who knows Google Analytics more than 3 minutes to do. And if anybody's struggling on this call or on the recording, ping me an email. I'll do a screen share with you and show you how easy this is. So once you've got down your most popular 100 pages on your website, you just have to feed it through a word cloud generator that does thematic analysis. And they are 9 to the dozen, 10 to the dozen, I don't know. There are loads on the internet. And again, if you ask me, I can show you where they are. Monkey Learn, if you Google Monkey Learn, they've got a free one. And again, what this does, it tells us at ProFundCom what things on our website are resonating with people who are visiting our website. So we know now very, very quickly that digital marketing, fund marketing strategy, case studies are like top of the list, and bizarrely, private equity. which is something we don't push. So again, very, very quickly, we've got a very good idea of thematically should we start building our, not our website, our content around. So once you've actually, got an idea from your website is what content should you be building, that what the next step is okay, how do we start distributing that content? Now, what's really central to any content strategy is making sure that the website is the point where all the content is held. So whether you're running email campaigns, whether it's fund updates, whether it's webinars, events, social media campaigns, pointing and having a link back to the website gives you the ability to track every level of engagement and every level of interest that your ICI, your ideal investor, IIP, your ideal investor is engaged with. And it really creates a virtuous circle around creating content that keeps getting better. So once you've kind of built this, this model where the gold copy of all your content lives on your website, you've got the ability to really start tracking and analyzing and seeing who's engaging with this data. And once you've done that, this data can then get fed into your CRM, into your reporting, like the reporting I showed you, into automations. And marketing automations is another subject altogether. But marketing automations is basically, there comes a point where you'll get to a point, I guarantee you, where you'll be having so many inbounds that you just won't have the time to process them, categorize them. So that's where automation and lead scoring comes in, is where you can automate things like sending them emails, sending an alert to a salesperson to call somebody. And I'll come on to automations later on in this webinar. But having that data in the website or in a storage somewhere, websites are the easiest, is incredibly, incredibly useful, because you then move away, and hopefully you move away from the point of, here's a pretty website, people can leave their email addresses here, to actually something that drives your marketing. So how, again, the website fits in is, how do you go from brand awareness to demand generation? And there are kind of 4 ways to do this. So if you connect to your website where people can sign up, like I just said, the ability to create gated content is another great way to kind of build, it is to make that transition from brand awareness to where people are leaving to demand generation, where people are leaving their details behind. The ability to have an investor portal and having a fund center as well really, really builds up how the website is front and center, is truly front and center for your marketing. And marketing can be 2 things, right? Marketing, can be, in hedge fund marketing is actually the selling. But if you're an asset manager, it really is people really experiencing the brand and wanting to engage with the brand, therefore kind of leaving details behind. So that is really the really importance of having a great website. And when I say a great website, it's not about, it is about design, because, as Johnny Ive says, design builds trust, but it has to be designed with this kind of fund marketing, investor, investment generation, this AUM growing mindset. If it's just there to look pretty, you'll be in that 7-year cycle where, let's build a website, let's build a CRM, let's get another content management system. That never-ending cycle, because things aren't thought about in this joined up manner. Okay, so we've looked at brand narrative, we've looked at websites, thought leadership. So thought leadership is one of those things where, I always say this, and I think this came from Stacey Havener. Yes, it's come from Stacey Havener. If you don't know Stacey Havener, she's a fantastic marketer in the hedge fund world. Follow her on Instagram. I don't think she's on TikTok, but definitely follow on LinkedIn. And she kind of said this about 3-4 years ago, you can't out BlackRock. So it's a little bit like, okay, so we at ProFundCom can't outspend Pardot, Marketo, Salesforce. So what can we do? I mean, I might as well just give up, right? But what you can do, what we can do, if you're a smaller player, if you're not PIMCO, BlackRock, whoever, you can outthink people. And that's really interesting. And, you know, speaking to some fund managers recently who've come to our client events, the one thing they're really working hard at is how can we outthink the bigger players who are fat and happy doing what they're doing and not as hungry enough? Well, there's a challenge, because more than 90% of inflows go to the top 10 providers in any form of business, even at more amplified with fund marketing, fund management. So basically, most people on this call are really scrapping. So it's kind of that the ability, you may not be able to outspend BlackRock, but you can definitely outthink them. And there's some pillars that I've found, really two, that people have adopted these, and I've found, they've got this. And this is the voice of the brand. And I know there's lots of ways you can talk about the voice. The guys at White Marble talk about this. The guys at Cognito talk about it, probably White Marble more, and the guys at Peregrine. But what thought leadership is about is just putting your opinion across in a way that is educational, is entertaining, and is enlightening. And obviously, because we are kind of tied to regulatory bodies in how we market funds, this is a really, really interesting way in how you can take sensitive, complex, emotive subjects and kind of present them in a way that is easily digestible. And, you know, David Attenborough, I'm sure you all know who David Attenborough is. If you don't, you know, I mean, I've been listening to him since I was 10 years old about the planet, about climate change, about, you know, what we can do as individuals. And he's totally educational, totally enlightening, and he is totally entertaining. And, you know, the fact that I learned very recently that a caterpillar becomes a butterfly is through one of his reruns. So there you go. So that's kind of one part of the voice of what content you generate. The second part is kind of what I mentioned earlier on, is what people are interested in your content is not about performance all the time. The long tail sales cycles, whether you're buying a Tesla, you want to know all about it. You want to know, for a fund investment strategy, what's the manager's attitude to risk? Then you want to know performance. And again, whilst it kind of, to an economist, to your portfolio manager, to, you know, if to the CIO, they all about performance and feel like they live and die by performance. But, you know, we've got customers, you know, that have been with us since day one, and their performance has ebbed and flowed and ebbed and flowed. We've got customers who, when times were bad, kind of disengage with us and kind of engage with us later on. And we can actually see that, you know, long term, people that kind of stick with a /brand/a fund is less to do with performance, more to do with how much they trust. And that is all about transparency in investment strategy and attitude to risk. So once you've kind of got through creating your voice, building your narrative, creating these content pieces, how do you go about actually generating the content? And, you know, the best way to do it, and, you know, we've worked with clients who do this really well, and a few of them actually on this call, is Russian dolls. Can we say Russian? I've said it. And it's basically taking a webinar, taking an event, taking a manager speaking about the fund to a audio device or recording it, and then converting that webinar content into a white paper that you can distribute into some thought leadership pieces, into an article for the website, a LinkedIn post, and something to put on Twitter or whatever channel you want to use. So this is all about repurposing content. Is that just because you've got to do a lot of content generation. So this is what content generation looks like if you're using Excel on a monthly, weekly, quarterly basis. It doesn't mean you've got to generate content all the time. You can take one piece of content and repurpose it across multiple channels. And where most people get unstuck, I mean, how many times does, you know, the road to marketing heaven is paved to, no, the road to hell, to marketing hell is paved with good intentions. Oh yeah, we'll do this piece. And then 3 weeks, months later, it suddenly disappears. Does nothing for your trust in your brand. But if you do a simple Excel spreadsheet, just like the one I've shown here, and if you reply to the replay, I'll send this spreadsheet out to you. This is what we use actually, and we've set, this is probably the most requested bit of content I have, which is basically an Excel spreadsheet telling you weekly, weeks of the month, how to generate your content. And an example of how we do it is here. So this is how we do it ourselves. So actually scheduling that content is incredibly useful. And once you've actually got the content ready, is the ability to take that content, chop it up for short form, long form videos, pushing that out into an email campaigns, into social media, webinars, fund updates on the website. That then feeds the machine of automation, of your CRM, of your analytics and your reporting. So this becomes the virtuous circle, where content you're producing gets on the website, feeds the analytics, and then goes back very much to the model which I had earlier on, which was this one here. And you just keep building that model. And as you, the more months you spend doing this, the return on this is not algebraic. So, you know, 1 + 1 + 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's actually geometric, because it's a constant feedback loop. And the thing that absolutely drives this, and it's almost, there is no compromise doing this, is the ability to actually have this laid out in a spreadsheet. Our tool does this as well. Other tools are available. Trello is another good example, but visually being able to see your marketing activities around your fund on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. Because if you don't have the content, if you don't have the discipline, there's no analytics. Okay, so hopefully I haven't, you know, battered the audience here with too much on thought leadership and discipline. The next thing is another great way to use digital marketing, LinkedIn. Now, there's a lot of misconceptions about spend. There's a lot of misconceptions on what works, what doesn't work. So what I kind of spent some time doing was I created a little chart here that shows, from a marketer's perspective, what things are slow and difficult to do and expensive, and what are quick and easy. Now, what's really interesting is that whilst most managers, when marketing companies come in and they've built the website, say, oh no, now you do need to do SEO and you need to do paid ads and you need to go on a platform, nobody ever sees any return from this. And the reason is because A, they're expensive, and B, they're hard to do, and it takes time. And the nature of the beast is, you know, it takes a good 7 years to rank #1 on Google without using any black hat, you know, dark web techniques. It's just not worth it. Google Ads, again, you know, is a incredibly, it's an art form in itself. Pay-per-click, you know, the thing where you're bidding on words, and again, the quality of data that comes through, you know, we've seen this from our clients, is utter dross. So the middle ground is LinkedIn, and the middle ground on LinkedIn is social posting and social direct messaging. And why that works, once you know who your ideal investor is, You go to your ideal investor, you've worked out who they are, where they are, what geographies they are, what companies they're part of, what groups they're part of, and then you socially message them. And the way you do that, you can do that in two ways. There are tools available online that allow you to send, I think you need a premium package on LinkedIn to do this, but you can send introductory emails and follow-ups to people on LinkedIn once you know who they are, and you use Sales Navigator to do that. The other part is putting posts up there about your fund. What we've found is that it's not about going on LinkedIn and getting caught up in the dopamine effect of having likes and applauds and stuff like that. It's absolutely got nothing to do with that. The only number that matters is the views you get. And LinkedIn has changed its algorithm. So when you used to get 700, 800, 900 views, it's now gone to about, it's reduced by an order of magnitude. So it's not to get caught up in likes, more to get caught up in the views that your post gets. Because a lot of people in the fund marketing world don't want you to know what they're doing, right? And that's just the nature of the beast. And if it's out there on social and you're hoping people like your posts and you are just focusing on the like, you will move away from your narrative, you'll move away from your ideal investor. And the minute you get that wrong and you're kind of chasing the likes, not a good thing. The other thing that's not working on LinkedIn is virtue signaling. Is like, stay away from that. However, investment strategy, attitude to risk, a degree where you're talking about performance, invitations to events, incredibly, incredibly powerful. Because ultimately, once you are doing your marketing, marketing, whether you're using email, whether you're using, LinkedIn, whether you're using your investor portal, it's a broad brush, and it's a one-to-many relationship. What LinkedIn does and what Outlook does as well, it brings those one-to-many connections into a one-to-one connection. And that is the ultimate goal of digital marketing, is to be able to have the scalability and scale with all your marketing campaigns to reach out to lots of people, but quickly filter them in so a salesperson is being able to have a one-to-one engagement. And again, using social direct messaging, I've seen this work incredibly well, and I do it, and I know a bunch of our clients do it. And the best practice is to effectively set time in your diary to do direct messaging. And it could be half an hour in the morning. Before 10 o'clock, you get a better response, by the way, on any communication you send out. So that's for free from me. So definitely think about being disciplined to do these social DMs. And you may not feel like, oh, that's not for me. I'm not that person. I suppose just get over it. Okay, so that's LinkedIn, and that is the power of LinkedIn. Don't go into LinkedIn ads, by the way, it's a ripoff. So once you've done LinkedIn, I know I touched on this, online events. Online events, and I'm gonna break this down into three things: online events, offline events, and calls. It's one thing that people say they'll come to an event. It's one thing that people see an invite to an event, a call, online, offline, and then they forget about it. And so you run your event, and the worst nightmare is nobody shows up, or very few people showed up. And then you do the follow-up, and then it's like, oh, you know what? Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Oh, you know what? I didn't get a reminder. That is so important to have that workflow in place. And having online events for fund managers is incredibly, incredibly useful. And building a workflow that feeds that, again, I cannot stress how many customers of ours have just using this very simple workflow, and they don't have to use our product to do this. None of you guys on the call have to use our product to do this, but just being able to send an invite, tracking who's opened an email, who hasn't, then working out, did they click to the link for the invite or they didn't, and then building a workflow around that is incredibly, incredibly useful. So if you're running an event, if you're running anything that has a digital element to it, building in this workflow where based on behaviors, you are actually creating a touch point for prospects or investors, incredibly useful. And it's important for investor calls because you just want to tell people, hey, we care, we're here, and automating that is a good thing. And people who are prospects, just being front of mind for an event, incredibly useful. And if they don't attend the event, then it's just sending out the replay and then seeing, did they open the replay? Did they not? If they open the replay, send an alert to the salesperson to call the follow-up and the like. And that's incredibly an efficient way of running an event without the panic of nobody showing up. So that's one part of automation. And if people do leave their details with you, whether that's on Investor Portal or whether that's they're downloading fact sheets, is the ability to then make them part of a nurture campaign where you can effectively send out a sequence of emails to people who have left their details with you. And that's, something I've just thrown in there just so that it kind of ties into not really events, but it kind of ties into automation and people leaving their content with you, their email addresses with you. I just didn't have a place to put it, but nurture campaigns by far are an incredibly efficient way to get that last 10% out of your marketing campaigns. All right, I've got a quick question here. Why am I not an ad? Okay, so we have done analysis because that's the business we're in, and we have tracked the clicks that we think LinkedIn provide us, and we're our business, so we know. We filter out all bot traffic, and we get a number. What's interesting is LinkedIn does not filter out bot traffic. So you are effectively paying double because half LinkedIn's traffic is bot traffic and they don't filter it out. And a number of our clients have raised this. We know it. A number of clients of ours have raised it. We've sent our clients a particular email to send to the support desk of LinkedIn, and they get their money back. And it is LinkedIn's dark secret. The support desk admit to it. It's absolutely not worth doing it. Absolutely not worth doing. And again, this is that the bot traffic is a huge problem in digital analytics. And we are one of the only platforms that filter out bot traffic. So in our digital data, and we've got an algorithm that deals with that. And we also buy IPs that are spamming. We have that database as well. So LinkedIn is absolutely, if you're a fund, not the place to go for LinkedIn ads. It's kind of stay away. If you've got money to burn, there is some return on it. We have seen customers have a landing page built specifically for LinkedIn traffic, and we have seen LinkedIn ads to landing page. There is good traction, but there's no further traction thereafter. So people don't tend to leave their information behind, and they don't visit other parts of the site and consume more content. So if your goal is just for people to land on a page and not leave their data or visit somewhere else, you don't want them to do that, you'll get somewhere. My sense is the quality of data is poor because 200 customers later and user groups, nobody's ever said to me, hey, I did a LinkedIn ad and something came through. What can you do on LinkedIn if compliance doesn't allow direct messaging? So that's what, Rachel, I hope that helps. You can't get LinkedIn to respond, Rachel. Okay, well, what I'll do is if you ping me an email, paul.das@profuncom.net, I will take you through what you need to do and hopefully get your money back. Erica, what can you do on LinkedIn if compliance does not allow direct messaging? Well, then it's company posts, events. That's a good way to do it. Another good way is to find people in groups, and in groups put messages out in groups. That is one way to do it. You may or may not get engagement, but my experience is that as time has gone on, people will engage with you after 7 to 11 posts, that they get familiar with you, they're comfortable with you. I mean, on LinkedIn, it is one of those places where it's a balance, but consistency and being verbose is a good tactic. So that's what I would say there, Erica. I hope that helps. So right, well, that actually brings us to the end. There's one question that's come in from Niels, which I will just answer. And hey, I've written a book on the subject. It's called Marketing to the Invisible Investor. You can get it from Amazon. 42 times being purchased. Half of the profit we make, all the profit we make from that actually goes to our foundation. The rest is taken by Amazon. If you ask me nicely, I can actually send you a copy of the book as well. And if you want to chit chat with me, I'm more than happy to spend time with anybody. If you just email me, you want to spend an hour with me or more or less, happy days. Niels, an answer for a question from Niels. We've seen some emails sent to different people at the same firm to be opened, sometimes at an odd hour. This leads us to believe some emails may somehow report that emails are open when they are perhaps not. Okay, very good question. So these are phantom opens. So what happens is when an email is delivered in bulk, most systems won't do this. There is one system that does it. It's ours, but let's leave it at that. So what happens is a couple of things happen. The first thing is an email gets sent to a mail server. They see that it's a bulk email and they start checking the links. So obviously, if a link is being checked, most systems would say, oh yeah, that link has been opened. And because it's an automated process, it seems like lots of links have been opened all at one time. And obviously your engagement numbers just keep going up and you think, whoa, you know, I am the big man on campus because I'm getting so much engagement. But in reality, as you pointed out, these are just phantom opens. So that's kind of the first part to this. The second part is that, you know, when emails are open at weird times in the day or weird times that it's like, that just doesn't make any sense. If it doesn't make any sense, it probably doesn't make sense, right? And that again is either that email is being opened by a security system, it's being opened by a virus checker, or you've actually sent it to a mailbox that is just monitoring spam. And it's kind of opened it and said, okay, you should not be sending it to this mailbox. So as a result, you get tagged as spam. So what you'll also find is that if you are looking at your content, your analytics, and the data is open from Boardman, a place in the US, that definitely means that data has been read by a bot. So the Boardman issue is a big one, where it's a place which has got lots of Amazon web servers that seem to just read emails and give you false data. So we built a system in our analytics where we know and we track phantom opens. And so we don't consider phantom opens to be opens. So we have an analytics system built in that tracks all that. So our data is cleansed for our clients. So again, great point, Niels, is this question. And you know, Elon Musk and Twitter haven't solved this problem yet. So, you know, on that sense, I think we're a little ahead of the game there. So I hope that helps, Neil. Joanne, can you share the name of the person you mentioned? I think Stacey Havener. Victoria, I think Victoria's on this call. Victoria, can you just quickly go on the chat and just see if I've got her name right? Stacey Havener, if you're still on the call. If not, I'll put it in the replay. Oh yes, Niels, Russian dolls are full of themselves. Yes, very good. Boom, boom. Is it vexing that recipients of well go unanswered? Why? John, really interesting question. So what you're really asking is, how do you go about precipitating a response from an email? Now, if you want to know how to do this, I highly recommend going on YouTube and Googling Chris Voss, and the subject line is no orientated questions. And he has a phenomenal vernacular on how you do this. But I'll quickly give you what I do. Always gets a response. 1, would you be against? 2, would it mess up your diary if I? Would it interrupt your schedule if I? And if nobody responds, then I come back with just one line. Have you given up on blah? And I guarantee you, John, if you follow Chris Voss and kind of follow, and you know, the way he structures emails and send them before 10 in the morning, you will get a response. Scouts on them. Kunal, hello Kunal. What topics do you brainstorm as a marketing manager for fund distribution platform if you don't come from a finance background? Kunal, what I'll tell you is what I'll tell my kids, is that the keys to the kingdom are good questions. So ultimately, if you are having a marketing meeting and you're the marketer there, it's the way you build respect, the way you build, you know, I'd rather be respected than liked. And sometimes you've just got to tell people the truth. And you've got to say, look, I don't really understand this subject, but I've got a few questions for you. And it's like, okay, well, what are those questions? I'm being Kunal. 1, what is our fund narrative? What are we talking about? What are we about? What is not the how we do things, the why? And Simon Sinek's a great author, the why. What's the why? The second thing is to talk about, again, you know, once you've worked out the narrative, it's like, who are our ideal investors? Where do they live? Because as a marketer, you won't be talking to them on a daily basis. If you're new to a fund, the people there already have that knowledge. And it's really extracting the ability to extract information from people, you know. And again, Chris Voss is a great example of this. He was an FBI negotiator, and his job was to get out people from the Middle East just negotiating, and he has a 100% record. So again, Chris Voss on how you ask questions is a phenomenal, and he's part of the Black Knight group, I think. Go on their podcast. I mean, he is phenomenal on how to get information out, you know. And I know it's the case because, you know, in many ways, I never knew much about fund marketing. I never knew much about programming. I never even knew how to run a business. And most people will say, yeah, Paul, what's changed? And it was just asking questions, because when you ask for help, people will help you. And when you ask for help in questions, people will really help you. So as long as you're not a dick, you know, Kunal, with people, you know, most people will help you, you know. And those are my 3 rules of life, by the way. Work hard, be kind, don't be a dick. Right, Robert. Hello, Robert. Missed the first 15 minutes, but post a 1-hour full video. Yes, I will. A replay will be going out to everybody. David Donahue, are there any websites that aggregate fund offerings that are effective in driving potential investors to new opportunities? I think Edgefolio is a good shout on that one. Yeah, so Rowan Pillay, he's the CEO of Edgefolio. He's got a platform that definitely does do that. So I'd give Rowan Pillay from Edgefolio a shout out. Chris Voss, VOSS. So yeah, so that is the person who deals with that. Right, I've just got a few more minutes to take a few more questions, and I'm going to try and find Stacey's name on LinkedIn whilst everyone waits. Here we go, got it. So it is Stacey Havener, Havener. So what I'll do is in the replay, I'll make sure that is sent out as well. Oh yeah, you've got it. Thank you, Niels. Well done. Well done. So hopefully, right. So thank you, everybody, for spending almost an hour with me. Very few dropouts, so thank you. And like I said, the replay will be sent out. Any questions, paul.das@profuncom.net. And as you're on this webinar, somebody from my team will be reaching out if you want to spend some time with me or want a copy of the book. Okay, thank you all very much. Have a great weekend, everybody, and see you hopefully in 4 weeks' time.